Do you have any regret about forcing Canadians to live under a government they don't want so you can get richer? Because congratulations, today you are eligible for your pension.
Like I said, I'm not going to be answering your questions. Is there any other question? Est-ce qu'il y a des autres questions?
These wackos, man. I'm almost mad that I have to talk about this stuff because it is that unhinged and stupid. But yes, indeed, this is real news. I have some updates for you regarding Elon Musk and Trump. And oh my goodness, some liberals are going to be so very disappointed by the reality of something that they have been doing. We're going to touch a lot, actually, on the liberal leadership race debates last night, the English version. If you didn't watch them, consider yourself lucky. But there were a few devilish details. And Mark Carney is without a doubt a ticking time bomb. And there's something incredibly evil about him. And I'm curious to know if you feel the same way after I point it out to you. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, like, share, comment your thoughts down below, and give me a follow on other social media platforms as well. Let us first begin this with what I like to call media manipulation. That is actually just what that's called. So CBC News posted this. You may be familiar, a couple weeks back, Charlie Angus, who is somehow an elected member of parliament. He's NDP. Who elected this guy? I don't know. I Googled him. Apparently he has a wife. That shocks me because he is such a wiener, but I don't know. Some people like that, I guess. He had launched this petition.
I was approached about this petition on Elon Musk's citizenship. And of course, a petition doesn't remove citizenship, but I thought, well, people want to express their anger at these profoundly anti-democratic actions of Musk. So let's see what happens. I have to say, I've never seen anything like it.
So he actually has two petitions right now, one aimed at Elon Musk, wanting the government of Canada to strip Elon Musk of his citizenship, and another one asking the government of Canada to essentially ban Donald Trump from coming to Canada, as though he's coming to Canada anytime in his schedule at all, but alrighty then. Here is where the media manipulation is so very strong, to the point that it's actually kind of despicable that this is allowed to happen. So this petition has garnered well over 250,000 signatures, which is wild and goes to show the psyop that is working very, very successfully in this country. Don't get me wrong, Elon Musk has said and done, I shouldn't say done, he said some things about Canada that, yeah, that's not really the coolest thing to say, but also, who cares? You're a guy on the internet. Literally, who cares? You don't affect my life at all, that I know of at least. Maybe there's some documents that are going to come out where I'm going to find out that Elon Musk is behind all of this stuff. Unlikely, given the fact that he supports Donald Trump, but who knows? Now, the thing about this that is so distasteful and so dishonest is it says House of Commons petition signed by more than 250,000 Canadians. It goes on to say that this petition to revoke Elon Musk's citizenship is on track to become one of the most popular in the history of the House of Commons, which I just find to be quite laughable, because this petition that Charlie Angus has proposed has been all over CTV, all over CBC, it's been all over X. People are talking about it like mad. Yeah, let's revoke his citizenship. Oh my goodness. And here's the issue though, because a couple months back, over 390,000 Canadians, far greater than what this petition has garnered, signed one to force an election. That didn't make headline news, did it? That wasn't on CBC in the same way. It wasn't spoken about. Wow, over 390,000 Canadians want a freaking election. It is one of the most signed petitions in Canadian history. No, there was no headlines about that, no coverage about that at all. So there goes your bias showing, again, CBC. And you know what? Here's the thing. Words matter, stories matter. PSYOPs happen very intentionally to completely control and change the narrative of a population. Look at how successfully that has worked. Every single page on CTV News, on CBC, is pro-Mark Carney and anti-Donald Trump, anti-American. We're going to get back to this, but even on that note, listen to what Karina Gould had to say just last night.
And I'm going to call on Canadians to stop going to Florida, to stop buying Florida orange juice, because that's a $50 billion economy in that state alone. Canadians matter to the United States.
You heard it here, folks. Don't travel. Don't go to the United States. No more vacations for you, as if you could afford them anyway with how bad our dollar is. No more orange juice either. Just stay in Canada. Stay right here. Keep voting for us. Stay right here. We created the problems, but we don't want you to think that it's only Donald Trump and Elon Musk's fault. Stay here. We're going to give you a universal basic income so you have no hope at all in your life, and you won't be able to afford to ever leave or make anything of yourself. And we're just going to give everybody made, and life is going to be so, so beautiful over here with all of the great things that we're offering you in Communita. That's essentially what she's saying. I am absolutely going to go off at some point in this episode today. Nonetheless, just to tie up this one story here, this petition, fun fact, yeah, what a stupid waste of time, useless thing for Charlie Angus to do. And he should have known better because he is a member of Parliament, right? Yeah, turns out that Canada cannot revoke Elon Musk's citizenship. That is the most unhinged and deranged thing to even say. Why? Why do you even want to revoke Elon Musk's citizenship? Why? What did he do to you in particular? He's a guy with opinions you don't like. He's maybe said some disparaging things about Canada. More than half of the population has probably complained about this country at one point or another in their life as well. Who cares? I said Mark Carney is a ticking time bomb, and I agree with that, but I also think I can include myself in that category today after all of this. Another freaking stupid thing that Charlie Angus proposed is a petition to ban Donald Trump from Canada. And this petition already has like just under 100,000 signatures, by the way. Yeah, that's how well the PSYOP and the media manipulation has worked in this country. Unbelievable. He lists a whole bunch of reasons for this. You can pause the video to read them all, but in summary, here's what it says: that they call upon the government of Canada to refuse Donald J. Trump entry to Canada until such time as he ceases and desists making threats or taking actions contrary to the well-being of Canadians, in particular to our monetary and sovereign security, with compliance as a step towards overcoming inadmissibility. Ew, Charlie Angus, ew. Grow up. And could you imagine, seriously think about this, if people like Charlie Angus, if people like all of the hundreds of thousands total of signatures on these petitions cared enough about this country, and they were so laser focused on fixing our problems and strengthening our economy so that this was not an issue, if they cared that much about us versus woke, insane, delusional virtue signaling on the internet to feel like they are really powerful and popular today, if they cared that much and put that effort into fixing this country, wow, just think of where we could be. But Charlie Angus doesn't do that. No, he spends his time drafting up these petitions and talking about them on news shows to continue the media narrative that is absolute baloney.
I also believe we need to ban Donald Trump from attending the G7 summit. Donald Trump should not be welcome here. Why would we invite someone who has threatened our very democracy, our very sovereignty? Why would we invite someone who has threatened our economic well-being?
And speaking of baloney, I've been seeing this trending on social media as well, that Donald Trump has pushed off the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico until April 2nd. That's kind of half true, but no, that's not actually true. So let's just clear that up for anybody who may have seen similar headlines. So according to the White House officials who have been sending out their press releases and whatnot today, they said that U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to impose a sweeping 25% tariff on Canadian trade products is moving ahead as scheduled on March 4th. However, that could change pending ongoing negotiations. Then that White House official clarified, as of now, we don't have any developments or progress to share. So they are still moving ahead as the president indicated. The thing that he did push back until April 2nd is what Donald Trump has described as the big one, and that is the new tariffs on steel and aluminum and other reciprocal tariffs that he has been saying. And so steel and aluminum tariffs have been pushed back until March 12th, and then the big one, reciprocal tariffs, are supposed to be coming going as of April 2nd. And let's not forget that reciprocal tariffs were Justin Trudeau's government's idea, by the way, because Donald Trump had never said anything like that until Canadian media and everybody from Justin Trudeau's camp, while they're using Donald Trump's threat as a way to get themselves some votes, because they don't actually care about any of it at all. Because if they did, they would certainly be handling themselves in a much more professional and diplomatic fashion than what we have currently seen. They're all using this as a let's create more fear and therefore get more votes.
The U.S. is turning predator. And so what Canada needs to do is work closely with our democratic allies, our military allies. I've been foreign minister. I know how to do that. That's why I would start with our Nordic partners, specifically Denmark, which is also being threatened, and our European NATO allies. I would be sure that France and Britain were there, who possess nuclear weapons. And I would be working urgently with those partners to build a closer security relationship that guarantees our security in a time when the United States can be a threat.
Oh, okay. So we're now alluding to a threat of nuclear war, are we? Whew. If you think Donald Trump's tariff threats are a big deal, a big threat to this country, just you wait to see how other nations react to that one.
We will never, ever be part of the United States in any way, shape, or form. We have to recognize that the Donald Trump of today is different than the Donald Trump of several years ago. Then his objective was to take more of our market. Now he wants to take our country.
Yeah, no, that's not true at all, dude. Thank you for fear-mongering, of course. And of course it's going to get clipped and it's on CBC and everybody's, oh my God, Donald Trump wants our country. No, he doesn't. I do think that Trump's comments have certainly gone a little too far here, but Donald Trump cares about the U.S. Donald Trump hates Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party because they're the Democrats, but 10 times worse. And Donald Trump, the first time around, he wanted to take our market. Well, Mark Carney, why did you hand it over to him then?
I was chair of Brookfield Asset Management. I ceased to be chair on the 15th, I think, of January.
Toronto-based Brookfield Asset Management is moving its head office to New York from Toronto.
The formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board.
Last night, Mark Carney lied to Canadians. He lied to Canadians saying that his company, Brookfield Asset Management, only moved their headquarters from Canada to Donald Trump's hometown of New York City after he had resigned from the board. Now, we all know that Brookfield made that announcement on October the 31st, proving that Mr. Carney was lying to Canadians. But this morning, we can share with you a letter signed by Mark Carney on December the 1st. Now, this is just days after Donald Trump had threatened Canada for the first time with unjustified tariffs. Now, this letter says that the decision by the board, of which Mark Carney at that time was chair, was unanimous to move the headquarters and Canadian jobs to Donald Trump's hometown of New York City. And the letter implores shareholders, urges them to support the move. Now, this is not surprising, but it is extraordinary to have Mark Carney stand before Canadians and in response to media questions to lie.
Here's the thing. When you have a really big ego, when you are displaying characteristics of a narcissist, you fail to recognize reality and you fail to see the bigger picture, and you think that everything you're doing is really great, but it's actually making it so much worse. That's why being friends and being around these people are horrible, and why most people end up not hanging out with them, because they suck and they propose stupid things that don't make any sense at all, that benefit nobody other than themselves.
Let me finish by pointing out one other thing. Who's the worst person to stand up to Donald Trump? It's Pierre Poilievre. He worships the man. He uses his language. He's not the right person for our country at this crucial time.
Conservatives have brains, and we just think and believe in a different set of values than liberals do. 2 plus 2 obviously equals 4. So for Mark Carney to be so disillusioned and so out of touch to think that because Pierre Poilievre, a conservative, has issued some of the same complaints, some of the same criticisms as Donald Trump, a conservative, means that he's copying him is just absolutely foolish. Let's think about it here. Canada and the US, yep, we are on the same continent. Yep, we face many of the same challenges. And yep, we are very much interconnected. So a lot of the problems that the US has are very similar to problems that we have here in Canada. And yep, the Republicans are conservatives, only our Conservative Party in Canada is far more liberal than anything if you honestly just go and look at the definitions and compare platforms, whereas the Republicans in the United States are much, much, much more right-leaning than Canadian politicians are. But it makes a lot of sense that they would both be talking about these same things, which is government overreach, government overspending, Justin Trudeau being a corrupt loser, Mark Carney being a corrupt loser, the fact that we do have a massive problem with immigration. I actually have a hilarious video idea for tomorrow that just came to me. I'm going to work on that once I publish this tonight, but stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy it. But as a whole, to summarize there, it is just the most pathetic, weak rhetoric ever. You have somebody who was voted in by the vast majority of the American people, who won popular vote, by the way. And you are trying to villainize that individual and compare our Conservative Party to him as though that's a bad thing. You do realize that Donald Trump won by a landslide, right? Because the American people rejected what you're trying to do to this country for another 4 years. And let's not forget, Mr. Carney, that the problems we have with our economy, oh, baby, they are on your hand. Yep, because you've been advising our government on paper since 2020, but let's be real, it's been far longer than that. Your uncle married Justin Trudeau's mom back in 1984 before getting a divorce in 1999. You became the godfather of Chrystia Freeland's son, and you expect us to believe that you've had no influence whatsoever in anything that they've done throughout this entire 9 years? It was only in 2020? Yeah, okay. I want to wrap this up with something that he did yesterday that there's a word for this. I just can't remember what it is, but it's basically when somebody does something or says something and you just get this feeling from them, and it's like a very evil, nefarious feeling. It's called like spiritual something. I get that feeling a lot when Mark Carney speaks. I get that feeling a lot when I watch his demeanor and his facial expressions. And I'm just curious if you get that feeling as well here. And then we'll go into ripping apart what he said because it was really stupid afterwards.
Why is it that you can make time to fill out your security clearance papers but won't proactively disclose your corporate interests?
Because I'm received those security papers as part of this process for the leadership debate. The real question is, why can I fill out my security papers?
That's not the real question, actually. The real question she asked was, why do you refuse to disclose your finances? And also, Mr. Carney, you just poked the biggest hole imaginable in your story here, because despite what he's about to say going forward, he just admitted that the only reason why he got it was because it was mandatory as part of the liberal leadership race and the policies that they have. Whereas with Pierre Poilievre, it's not mandatory. It's just something that the Liberals have been using to make Canadians feel as though he's untrustworthy, even though the recent inquiry into foreign interference found that, yeah, no, there was actually nobody at all that had any issues. And our biggest influences are, in fact, not Russia. Oh, I know, crazy. But it's actually India, China, Pakistan, and Iran were four of the big guys that were named there.
In the course of 2 weeks, arrange for an interview, have the police background check, be in a position to get my security clearance, and Pierre Poilievre, after 3 years, can't do any of those things. At a time when we know there's foreign interference in our democracy.
But the report said that there wasn't any, actually, so.
And our country is under threat. I'll say one other thing. I've had security clearance in the past. I've had Five Eyes security clearance in the past. This is important information. And the idea that you could lead a major political party in this country, let alone think you could be prime minister without having access to this information, it's absolutely irresponsible. That's the question.
Well, now I just have another question, which is, why did Mark Carney, an unelected outsider, previously have Five Eyes security clearance for Canada? So I looked into this a little bit more and found that essentially central bankers like the Bank of Canada or even the Bank of England do not require security clearances, specifically do not require those used within the Five Eyes intelligence alliance. They are, subject to all sorts of different background checks and security protocols. But the clearance in particular that he just said he previously had would be abnormal for him to have as governor of the Bank of Canada or the Bank of England. So what has Justin Trudeau been telling this guy? What does he know? Why does he know it? You see, it's funny when people try to do things again where your ego takes over and you try to flex and the truth comes out. That's interesting. I'd appreciate if somebody would ask him more about that.
But then why won't you proactively disclose your corporate assets?
Just feel I'm in the middle of a leadership campaign. I will be subject to all the conflict of interest rules and the ethics rules. I will happily comply with all of them. It's a straightforward process. That will begin as soon as this process ends if I'm selected as leader of the Liberals.
I don't know what it is. Like, first the kind of laugh that he does, and then also, like, you could tell he was getting mad about it. Like, I'm going to do everything. But what's interesting about that is Justin Trudeau as an example, and Justin Trudeau has he's had dozens of issues. Like, he has been a repeat offender in terms of ethics violations. And even he disclosed well before what all of his potential conflicts of interest are. He disclosed what his trust was. Like, he disclosed everything. And if you want to use the security clearance as a way to bash Pierre Poilievre, and what you're insinuating there is that the reason why he doesn't have it is because there's something there, right? There's something that he's hiding. That's why he doesn't have it. In reality, the reason why he doesn't have it is because even if he did, it wouldn't make a difference. He wouldn't be able to talk about anything anyway. And it's not mandatory. If it was mandatory, he'd have it because it's mandatory, right? Like it wasn't this Liberal leadership race for some reason. But okay. However, if you want to use that as a talking point, oh, well, Pierre doesn't have this. Why doesn't he have this? And it's to cast doubt, it's to cast suspicion. The exact same thing can be said for why you are so against just sharing what you should be sharing. If you care about this country, you care about our security and safety, and you want people to like you, you want to say, oh, well, Poilievre doesn't have this because he's hiding something. Well, you aren't being truthful either. And you have been caught lying about some of these associations that you have. So what are you hiding? Like, it's the exact same argument there. And let's also not forget, this is arguably, gosh, I hope you stayed to the end of this video, because this is arguably one of the most important pieces of information here. The Liberal government has been urging Pierre Poilievre to get that top security clearance, right? They say that it's going to help him with foreign interference and getting classified briefings, and he'll have access to all sorts of intelligence and information. Poilievre has declined that because he says that it would restrict his ability to publicly critique the government's actions. And Mark Carney goes and highlights again this old talking point. Like, most people in the Liberal Party aren't talking about this anymore. But Mark Carney brings up this old talking point about the fact that Pierre Poilievre doesn't have this particular clearance. However, the Liberal government could not legally confirm or deny whether or not Pierre Poilievre has received his clearance, unless Pierre Poilievre makes the decision to speak on that on his own. Now, we've seen them say that he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. And that part is interesting too, because we've seen them use this at length in the House and during question periods with their rhetoric. It's been all over the place, creating this cloud of suspicion over Pierre Poilievre, even though their report came out and said that, yeah, there's nobody that's affected by this. We're all good. But the national security and confidentiality laws actually fall under the Security of Information Act. So for the Liberal Party to disclose an individual's clearance status without their consent is actually a breach of security protocols. And under that Privacy Act, a person's security clearance status is classified as personal information and cannot be released publicly by the government without their explicit consent. So the fact that the Liberals have been running on this for as long as they have been, the fact that Mark Carney goes and brings it up again, goes against what those privacy acts, that goes against the laws that we have with confidentiality. Like that alone, that they've made this such a massive talking point solely for their advantage. There they are again, actively violating what is written to be followed as law. For all we know, Pierre Poilievre got his clearance months ago, and that's why, months ago, the Liberals stopped using that talking point. For all we know, he has filed all of his paperwork and everything's good to go. We would never know unless he decides to tell us. So I don't know. That's just a little interesting piece of information to think about because they have certainly weaponized that talking point at length. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. I feel like the latter half of this episode was arguably the most important information. So if you stuck around, thank you very much. I am still sick as a dog. I'm going to do my darndest to film for you tomorrow. It is unreal how long I've been in this studio already, going in between like blowing my nose and whatnot. And my head just feels like a mess right now. But I hope all of this made a lot of sense to you. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. I'm very, very curious to know your perception as well on some of the last few clips that we shared there. And I will hopefully talk to you tomorrow.